Okay. Hi, students. Good morning. Welcome to our first screencast. We're going to try this out, so I'm curious to hear what you think about doing notes this way. So you get to go at your own pace and rewind, pause as you need. So we're trying it out this morning. Basically, today, if you look at the pictures on your screen, we're looking at cells. And so cells don't always look exactly like the ones that you're used to seeing in your textbook, especially the cartoon versions. So if you look at these pictures here, these are some pictures of plant cells under a microscope, and you'll notice that they're green because of the green chloroplasts and that they're kind of rectangular because of the cell walls. If that's not something you remember from middle school, that's something we're reviewing right now. And then on this side, we have the animal cells, and they happen to show up blue. That's probably because of a stain that is added so that they show up better under the microscope. However, what we can see in these is that they have a nucleus. So that's what this dark dot is in the middle of each one. That's the nucleus. And we can tell they're not shaped like a square or a rectangle because they lack a cell wall. They only have a cell membrane. So in your notebooks, you should have your organelle structure and function chart that looks like this. As you can see on mine, we're only filling in a very small amount. And we'll keep filling in this chart as we go through the year. So today it's not going to be 100% filled in. I even put a little bookmark or tab in mind because we're going to flip to this page a lot. Okay, so as we fill in these notes right here, try to write small. You can see I left some space between. So as you are filling in your notes, you're leaving space to add to it as we go through the year. Okay, so also we're only filling in the function. We're not talking about the structure yet, the shape of the organelle. We're just talking about what each organelle does. So make sure you're only writing in the function side. Okay, so get that out. Have it ready. We're going to go through an order and we'll only be talking about the functions of each organelle. Okay, so, this is the typical picture under in a textbook that you might see. So I want you to get used to looking at pictures of both, that we can learn to look at these drawn diagrams, but that when we look at real cells, which we're going to in this class under a microscope, you will get to see what they look like in real life too. Okay, so moving on. This first one should be the cell membrane. So that should be the first in your chart. Okay, so cell membrane for the function, the main job is it allows some molecules to pass into the cell and it allows some molecules to pass out of the cell, but it will not let just anything pass through. Okay, it's kind of like a fence where in the fence you might have openings where smaller animals could fit through, but it might block a dog into the backyard so the dog can't get out, or a fence might have a gate where people with a key are able to pass through. So that's kind of like a cell membrane, and we'll talk about that, where it allows some molecules through but not others. Okay, so it's not completely like a cell wall. It does allow some things through, and all cells have it. A cell membrane is around every type of cell. So we have an animal cell here, and we have a plant cell over here that you heard recently has a cell wall, but a plant cell also has a cell membrane. So it has both. Okay. Next one is the nucleus. And so I want you to start getting used to seeing these real pictures. If you look over here, let me see if I can get a tool. Here we go. So if you look at this area over here where you can see the real cells under a microscope, a nucleus is this dark purple dot. So all of those dark purple dots, or even like this one right here, that shows you it's the nucleus. And the job of the nucleus is to store DNA so that the DNA is protected. Okay, you can see in this picture here, with the drawing of the cell, they even drew DNA inside of the nucleus because that's its job. Remember how prokaryotes don't have a nucleus? But eukaryotes, like an animal cell in this picture, would have a nucleus. So pretty much all of our cells have a nucleus because we have eukaryotic cells, and that just stores the DNA. Okay, next one is found in plants, not in animals. This is that cell wall. So it provides extra protection, more so than the cell membrane can. It protects the cell from injury, and it provides support to the cell. So it is stronger and kind of more rigid. So that's what gives it this kind of squared off or like rectangular shape to the cells. When we look at plant cells under a microscope, we can actually see that they are kind of rectangular. They don't have a very rounded shape most of the time. It's very structured. That's because of the cell wall. Okay, so we have the cell wall that surrounds around the cell membrane, and then all of the other organelles or little parts of the cell are located inside. Okay, so moving down our chart, next one, also plant cells, is chloroplasts. So if you look at an animal cells will not have a chloroplast. Chloroplasts are only found in producers that can make their own food. So chloroplasts, it says, allows producers to build their own food molecules, which is glucose. So you learned about glucose sugar, that C6H12O6 last chapter. That's what chloroplasts are making during the process of photosynthesis, which we will be going into more detail later this year. Okay, if you look in this picture, this is a real microscopic image, and these cells don't quite look rectangular, but they still have the straighter edges, so that shows they have a cell wall. And these green circles are the chloroplasts. Chloroplasts actually are green. They are part of what gives leaves and parts of plants their green color. Okay, next, moving on, would be the mitochondria, which a lot of people learn as the mighty mitochondria. It converts large energy molecules, which is glucose actually, into smaller energy molecules called ATP that we are actually able to use. So basically, when we eat food, we get these large energy molecules that are too big for our cells to use. So we have these organelles, these little organs for the cell, called mitochondria, that help break down these large molecules. They help break down the glucose so that we are actually able to use the energy. Okay, that our cells are able to use it. And we'll be going into more detail on that in the next couple chapters. Okay, next one here is the lysosome. And a lysosome, they're pretty small. If you look at this picture over here compared to some of the other parts of the cell, they're not very big, and they hold molecules, like all these little dots in here. Those would be molecules that are maybe wastes for the cell, that the cell does not want anymore. And so what it says lysosomes do is they digest these wastes. They break them down. So, interesting fact, if you look over here, lysosomes contain enzymes, right? So those enzymes help break down molecules, just like we digest lactose using the lactase enzyme. There's enzymes in here that help digest things for our cell. Okay, so moving on to vacuole. A vacuole is a storage house. So it's similar to a lysosome that stores things, except while lysosomes digest, vacuoles mostly are for storage. So it stores materials like water or food, and it is found, here's a plant cell and an animal cell. It is found in both types of cells. However, they're very different. If I look at the vacuole in a plant cell right here, okay, there's actually two in this picture. They have one down here also. It's very large and it holds a lot of water. So you have a large central vacuole in a plant, where animal cells only have tiny vacuoles. So that is something that makes them very different from each other. Okay, and then the very last one, but not least, is a ribosome. And ribosomes, their job is to build proteins. So you remember from last chapter, a protein is made out of amino acids. And so in this picture, which looks kind of strange, this big blob is the ribosome. And so this right here is the protein. So each of these little circles is an amino acid, and it's kind of stringing them together into this long protein molecule. We'll talk about that process later this year too. If you look in the cells over here, these little dots, see it says ribosome? Those are the ribosomes. So they're very, very small. They're actually the tiniest of all the organelles. And they're also very important though, because without proteins, our bodies couldn't function. So we have these teeny tiny ribosomes that their very important job is to make proteins. Okay, so that's the overview. Obviously, there are more organelles that we didn't talk about, but these are the top most important ones that we'll talk about a lot this year. Okay, so you should have just the function side filled in. Your chart is not complete, but for now, I want you to go ahead and we're going to go to a new website. So this link is posted on Classroom as well. So I want you to take a second, pause the video, actually pull up this website in a second window, in a second browser. Okay, so go ahead and pause the video, and at the same time, I will get mine up and running. Let's see. Okay, so basically, you have this handout right here, and it's a review of these organelles that we just talked about, like mitochondria, nucleus, all of those. Here, you're going to write the function again, but I'll show you where you're getting the information. I want you to look up a different version of the functions. And then here it says, what do you notice about the structure of this organelle? So you're actually going to be looking at how they're shaped. Okay, so where you're going to do this and to fill out this worksheet is, I need to go out of here. When you click on that link, when you pause the video, it should have brought you here. So this is what do cells do. Okay, so if you hit start, it says our next screen, you will see a column for 12 cell organelles and structures. So you're actually building an animal cell and then building a plant cell. Okay, so click continue. And as you go through here, I'm going to click OK. It's going to have me build an animal cell first. Okay, so I have to successfully build an entire animal cell before it lets me move on to plant. See, if I click plant, it won't let me do that because it says your animal cell is not complete. So I'm going to look over here, and you can see as I hover my mouse, it will give me instructions or information, I mean. So in your chart on your worksheet, on your handout, not your notes, but on your handout that you just saw on the last screen, you're actually writing in what these different organelles do. Okay. Also, I want to physically build my cell. So if I drag this over, I'm building an animal cell, it won't let me do something incorrectly. It will say, no, this organelle does not belong to this type of cell. That makes sense because cell walls are not found in animal cells, only plant. So you need to actually find, oh, here's my cell membrane. Okay, great. So I'm building the outside of my cell, and then I'm just going to go through and read each one. So if you need to write in what a nucleus does, write that in and then actually add it to your cell. And eventually you'll have your whole animal cell built, and it will have you build your entire plant cell, which will help you on your handout when you get to this part over here where there's a Venn diagram. Once you are completely done with both cells, it will take you to a Venn diagram so you know you're getting the right answers. Okay, you'll have some time in class to work on this individually. This is our last thing we're doing before we do our group activity about specialized cells. So thanks for watching. Make sure you're at this website. Again, the link is on Classroom. Make sure you have this handout and you can go ahead and get started. Thanks.